Hey Panthers, I hope this final lesson in the Western Expansion unit went well for you. I'm going to start by going over the interactive map. I thought this was a pretty cool tool, the interactive map. So the present day states that were claimed by foreign countries, in 1800 we had a very long list of states. Probably took you a while to look at all those on the map. And then for 1850 we just had part of New Mexico. So over this time, the United States kind of kicked all the other countries that claimed land out. They got out of their way. You remember that was all a plan, part of the plan, because of the Monroe Doctrine. James Monroe, the United States government wanted nobody interfering with their growth as they tried to move westward. Major cities in the United States, in 1800 there were 3, in 1850 there were more than 20. Making a list of names that cities had more than 100,000 people, in 1800 there were 0. In 1850, we have Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and New Orleans. Native American tribes that had native lands that were located east of the Mississippi River, there were 14 in 1800, 0 in 1850. All the Native Americans were forced off the land to live on reservations. List of geological features that a person could cross while traveling on trail routes. In 1800, overland trails really only went about as just west of the Appalachian Mountains. If you remember the proclamation of 1763, colonists weren't even allowed west of the Appalachians for quite some time. By 1850, though, if you look carefully at the map, you would have found that the Appalachian Mountains, the Great Plains, the Rocky Mountains, the Great Basin, the Sierra Nevada, and the Cascade Range were all places that we had overland trails that could take you across by 1850. Major canals in 1800 and major railroads, 0 of each. But by 1850, we've got 20 or more major canals and 40 or more major railroads. If you're writing your fill-in-the-blank paragraph, this is how it should have came out. From 1800 to 1850, the United States expanded its borders from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. The number of cities with more than 100,000 grew from 0 in 1800 to more than 20 in 1850. Before 1800, there were 14 Native American tribes who held lands east of the Mississippi River. After 1850, there were 0 Native American tribes who held lands east of the Mississippi River. When Western expansion began, trail routes could take Americans just west of the Appalachian Mountains. By 1850, it was possible to travel across Appalachian Mountains, Great Plains, Rocky Mountains, Great Basin, Sierra Nevada, and Cascade Range. Also during this 50-year period, the number of canals went from 0 to 20 or more, and the number of railroads went from 0 to 40 or more. As you can see, the era of Western expansion was a time period when people were moving, population was growing, and things were being built. The next task, the last task actually, for this unit is to talk about new technologies from Western expansion. So you were asked to analyze a lengthy amount of text, so hopefully you use your nonfiction text analyzing skills to make that an easier process. That's something you want to be good at, especially going into middle school next year. Knowing how to scan text and using headings and topic sentences and bold words to find what you're looking for faster. First question's on the Erie Canal. The Erie Canal opened up western lands by having people travel west for goods, to transport goods. The diagram on page 328 shows a canal, and this shows us that the water in the upper lock needs to be lowered in order for the boat to continue moving. Two major rivers that steamboats were used in were the Mississippi River and the Ohio River. So don't think of steamboats as a type of invention that was on every waterway. The waterway had to be wide and deep and not rocky at all for the steamboats to be able to be used. By 1850, 9,000 miles of railroad track were laid across the United States. Obviously, that's going to eliminate the need for overland trails and make Western expansion much faster and cheaper. Eli Whitney came along in 1793, visited a plantation, and he noticed that the enslaved workers on the plantations were taking a very long time, and it was a very difficult and tedious task to remove seeds from cotton. So that's why he invented the cotton gin, really, was to speed up this process. So that's where we came into the discussion of costs and benefits of inventions. A benefit of Whitney's cotton gin was that it made it easier to remove seeds from the cotton. And this means that you would have a lot more cotton and it means that the price of cotton would be cheaper because there'd be a larger supply of it, and now more things would be made out of cotton because the product to make things cost less. Those are all benefits. Cost of Eli Whitney's cotton gin there's also a lot of those. For example, the cotton gin costs money to make. It also costs money to manufacture, and it took time to make. A huge cost, and it's an unintended consequence of Whitney's cotton gins, takes us to number 7, was that because of the cotton gin, Southern farmers started to grow more cotton, and they wanted more enslaved labor. And this was very bad because cotton becomes the king crop, cash crop in the South, and for many, many years, Southern plantation owners are cultivating more land and trying to buy more slaves to work on their cotton plantations. The reaper is another great invention. The two people who invented it were Cyrus McCormick and an enslaved member of his father's property, I guess, named Joe Anderson. And Joe Anderson actually worked on the reaper for a long time with Cyrus McCormick's father, and a lot of people credit Joe Anderson with actually inventing it. Kind of a cool story. A major benefit of having a machine like the reaper was that it made it possible for farmers to cut more wheat or to clear a field faster. And some farmers claim that they could even harvest 10 times as much as they could without the reaper. So being able to harvest more crops means more food, cheaper food. It means less work for farmers so they can plant more crops. And it also means that people are going to be more well-fed, which makes them more productive and allows them to live longer, healthier lives. I hope you guys enjoyed this unit. And our next unit is on abolition suffrage, so I'll see you tomorrow. And I hope you're ready for that topic. Have a great rest of your day.